negotiations to do with you today. It's about the difference in negotiation styles between the US and China. So we're going to be covering why intercultural negotiations or negotiations overall are important to consider, also culture's effect on negotiations, then the US counter to Chinese culture, then that will translate later into the difference in negotiation style between these two parties, and last but not least, we're going to tell you how we believe you should get to yes more efficiently. Astro will take us through the text style.
Just like Dr. Chester said, in business as in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. In our daily life, negotiations are to be found everywhere, like car purchase, house purchase, and salary agreement. We have to meet for group meetings. And our presentation is to give you the point of view that global negotiation is a learned skill in our business world. Let's invite Sarah to talk more about this.
Thanks, Extra. And why intercultural negotiations? Yeah, as we all know that the globalization trade remains strong. And why is that? Because of China, the main driver of this globalization is Chinese economy. And when we talk about Chinese economy, we all know that it has been moved from a closed and regulated economy to a fairly open one. And someone may say that the Chinese economy has already passed their booming days. But look some of the data here, and still significant GDP growth, right? But some of you may argue that, especially Chinese here, you may say that, oh, GDP growth doesn't mean anything. But look this, it is disposable income. Still strong growth, right? So I think we pretty much explained why intercultural negotiations. So then how? And to explain more.
Yes, so now we know that negotiations do matter. It is interesting to see in this course how culture relates to negotiations. We have this compilation that we have made. Basically, we think that culture, in terms of basic assumptions, values, and norms, affect people who live in this culture, their personalities, their lifestyles, etc. And this then translates into their negotiation style. And here we have used 12 variables from the book, which basically are conception of the negotiation, basis of trust, risk-taking propensity. So the culture will affect these 12 variables, and that in turn will then affect the negotiation process that will take place. And that is basically the ease of reaching an agreement and also satisfaction with the negotiation. So now we're going to take you through like the differences in the Chinese culture as compared to the American culture, and then also take up these 12 variables and how we see they differ.
Yes, so in order to analyze and understand the differences between the US and China, we have applied Hofstede's 4-dimension as noted in the textbook, where we're looking into power distance, uncertain avoidance, individualism, and masculinity. So one can say that the US culture is much more hierarchical than the Chinese, where inequalities are more acceptable. And the Chinese people are also more comfortable with ambiguities and beliefs that things will work out sooner or later, while the Americans prefer much more transparencies and know what could be waiting for them. And also in the US, people are expected to take care of themselves and be individualists and look for the best for themselves, while in China people are more acting in the interest of a group and make everyone successful. And also, as you can see here, that Chinese are sacrificing family for work, while in the US they live to work to attain monetary benefits in order to have a better life. So, moving forward to the difference in negotiation styles, we are using the framework as presented in the textbook with a total 12 different variables. And I'm going to take you through these three first ones. So, the first one is basic conception of negotiation process. The second one being negotiator selection criteria, and the third one being significance of type of issue. And basically you can say like the US, there's a lot more competitive environment, while in China they are looking for a more harmonizing approach, emphasizing friendship. And when choosing the negotiator, in the US they are hard on, they look for like a professional person that knows what it's talking about. While in China they have a term called kinship, which means that you usually want to work with somebody that is that you have a relationship with, and then someone you know from before.
About the concern with protocols, I think Americans are formal, they are serious and can choose, and while Chinese, they are informal, they are concerned with property etiquette, and they use home court as advantages. If you look at the complexity of language, Americans are low complex countries. Their words in negotiation are explicit and direct with a straightforward communication, while China is a high context country. Their words are implicit and unstated desires. Sometimes they just do not want you to understand our purpose. But the nature of persuasive argument, Americans are argumentative and based on research. Their logical approach, and as to China, they take attitude of no compromising to establish economic value, and they are emotional and aspiring to create harmony.
Thanks, Astra. And there's more differences in negotiation styles. Rules of individual aspiration. As we all know that individual aspiration can prevail due to because we all know in the States we all talk about the Superman, the superhero. It's about individual. But what about China? We never talk about that, right? We're being avoiding to see that whether it's a team or we never say that it's an individuals or as explained before, we're trying to work together as a team. And the second is the base of trust. Legal system in the States, everybody feel that they have a fiduciary duty, and it's a trust-based relationship. But in China, as many the groups explain, it's more based on we call 关系, and the friendship and or it's whether I know these people or not the base of the trust and risk taking. Just like the states, they like the superheroes, the individuals. There are a lot of adventurers, and they are willing to take risks when the returns are quite high. But what about China? I would say that it's a high avoidance of risk taking. It's just not like the States. And we explained a lot of differences in negotiation style. But guess what? There's more. So let's add to explain more.
Yes, the last three differences in negotiation styles that we have is the value of time, decision-making system, and form a satisfactory agreement. So basically the value of time in the US, they're monochronic. That means you care about agendas being punctual, being on time, and they have a short view of time also. They're systematic, and that's how they like the procedures. As opposed to China, they're more polychronic, where the individuals taking place are much more important than something taking a short amount of time. Their view of time is also long, and they're masters at stalling, basically. The decision-making system in the US is consensual. That means like everybody's opinion is valued, and basically you take a decision together mostly, as opposed to the Chinese that is more authoritative. Although we can come across as being participative, it is highly hierarchical. Form a satisfactory agreement in the States, the country being low context, they want a detailed contract covering basically every contingency that is possible with a disagreement to happen, as opposed to the Chinese, high context culture. They do value the contract that it's supposed to be carefully worded, but the legal infrastructure is lacking in their contracts. So having covered these differences in negotiation styles, then it is important to see how can we make negotiation be more efficient, how can we get to yes more efficiently. Well, we think that the first thing you need to do is to acknowledge the differences. Basically, there's both time and money to be saved by acknowledging these differences. Then you can work together more properly. For the Chinese party, they should care more about the communication. That is because for Americans, they value communication. Either it be face-to-face, the contract, it doesn't matter. They're a low-context culture, and coming to the Chinese high-context culture, there's a misfit there. So basically, to ease the negotiation process on the behalf of the Chinese, they should think about the communication, be explicit and straightforward. Then when we come to the Americans, they should think about what is most important for the Chinese, and that is basically the relationship. So here, Americans should pick out a few critical key aspects that are important for Chinese into building the relationship, and thus easing the negotiation. So both parties working together, but foremost acknowledging their differences. And that's how you reach yes more efficiently, we believe. Thank you.